Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills. Whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or your digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organization. Each and every episode, we sit down with leaders from various fields, just like you're grabbing a cup of coffee with them. We dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together.
Well, how do you know if you're leading at people instead of leading with people? It can be hard to see in ourselves, but the warning signs are often right in front of us. Do you withhold information? Do you publicly humiliate team members? Do you let little sarcastic comments, you just dig on them all the time? Do you throw people under the bus, whether it's in an email or in a meeting? You cut people off when they ask too many questions. There are so many more warning signs we're going to dive into this episode, but these behaviors can have long-term damaging effects on your team, and it could create a culture of fear and distance. Well, aren't you glad that you tuned in for this brand new episode of the Speak with People podcast? Today, we start a series called Lead with People, Not at Them. And on today's episode, we're going to dive into 7 key warning signs that your leadership style may be toxic and what you can do to turn these things around. So let's get real about how to lead with trust, transparency, and respect. And let's move away from leading with fear and control. Are you ready? Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz. I am your host today. I am also your guest. I'm putting on both hats because I'm kicking off this brand new series. And it's going to be an amazing series. I am scratching my head with how our podcast, because it's ours. I want you to feel like this is your podcast as well. So email me, jason@speakwithpeople.com. If there's guests that you would like to be interviewed, if there's ideas, if there's topics, please let me know. But I cannot believe the level of leaders that have signed up to be a guest on this podcast. This series alone, we have CEOs, people who've grew companies from 0 to 50 million. We have, there's an amazing professor who I just did an interview with, and she was in Singapore on the other side of the globe. I've done interviews with people in LA. All across the world. People who own companies, people who are authors, people who are speakers, people who are leaders just like you and I, who every day are building and growing their career, their business. And so I'm so excited about what this podcast series has to hold for each of us. I want to make sure you don't miss out. So if you're not a part of the Speak with People Facebook community, would you go and please be a part right now? Go to Speak with People, type in, or go to facebook.com, type in Speak with People. It will take you to the community group, Speak with People Facebook community group, and join it. If you have not liked the Speak with People page, would love for you to do that on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all those different kind of things. But in the group, for the whole series, we're going to be talking about different leadership things that happen to us, and we're going to take all of the ideas that you've been giving us. Again, thank you for emailing me, jason@speakwithpeople.com, specific situations, and we're going to help each other. We're going to give each other some wisdom. Also, head to speakwithpeople.com/lead, because you'll be able to download an incredible 20-point checklist to help level up your leadership. And if you're a team leader, this checklist will give you exercises to work with your team. Goodness, I'm already so excited, and we barely even started. I'm telling you what, this is going to be an incredible series, and I know that this is going to vault your leadership to the next level. And so I would love to hear from you, jason@speakwithpeople.com, and let's talk about how we can work together to vault your leadership to the next level. All right, so today, here's why this episode matters, because so often we may not see the warning signs that we're exhibiting in our leadership. And so hopefully, maybe this episode will point out some of those warning signs, because the reality is there are long-term effects of leading with fear and manipulation. And so maybe some of you are sitting in a seat at work and you're thinking, I'm never going to be able to get ahead unless I lead like the person down the hallway who is loud and commanding and obnoxious really at times. Now, you can still be a healthy communicator and be commanding. Absolutely. But there is a right way and a wrong way to do that. And when it starts to dip into leading through fear, through control, through manipulation, from talking down to people, for scaring them into following you, forget it. The long-term effects, your internal world is going to rot. Your internal world is going to rot. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to realize the only reason people follow me is because I scare the life out of them. So if you work in a place where your boss does that to you and you don't feel like it's safe enough to go talk to HR or talk to your boss, get out of there. What are you doing? Start putting in resumes everywhere you can. Start tapping into your network. You need to find a healthy environment to work at. Now, if you're the boss who does that, I hope you'll listen to this. I hope that you'll follow through. I hope that you'll listen to this entire series because it's time for you to change. And I was there. I led this way. I've talked about it on the blog. I've talked about it in the podcast. There were times throughout my career where I dipped into leading at people and I just scared people into following me. There was a time where my whole life changed, though. I worked at my dream organization in the Chicago area. I dreamt my whole life to get a job there, moved my family over to the northwest suburbs, and I settled in and loved it. Started working, and I loved everything about my job. I loved the organization. I loved the team. I loved my boss. I loved it all. And about 2.5 years in, I started an MBA at Lake Forest Graduate School of Management. Shout out Lake Forest. And the second class they had me do was a class on leadership. And I thought, this is great. The organization I work for is huge into leadership. I mean, they hosted a leadership conference that drew hundreds of thousands of people. I love this. And that class ruined my life. It ruined my life. It wrecked me. It tore me apart. It ripped my insides out. Here's why. Because my professor, I need to interview her, Tracy Contarenti, on the podcast. She was amazing. She worked at Motorola for years. She handed us a book called Primal Leadership by a gentleman by the name of Daniel Goleman, which I've been trying to get Daniel Goleman on this podcast for some time. So if you know Daniel Goleman or you have a connection with his camp, would you please give me a good word and recommend him to me? So recommend me to him. But I started reading through this book and it wrecked me because I had only seen leadership that led from a place of fear, that led from a place of control, that led from a place of manipulation, that led from a place of, if you don't do your job right, you're out of here. And we need to work hard. We need to do our performance description. But when it's constantly put over our head that we could lose our job tomorrow, that's a scary place. And I had worked for some bigger organizations where people just showed up one day and there was a box and you had a conversation with, HR and then you were done. So as I went to this big organization, I gave it my all. I was working 50, 60 hours a week and I loved it. I loved it. And then I broke my ankle and I had surgery and then I got a bad infection from that and that slowed me down a little bit. And then we had 4 little babies. I mean, maybe our oldest was 6 or 7, maybe 8, 9. And I was just missing everything because I worked Tuesday to Sunday. And my Saturdays were gone. I could get, to see some of her games Saturday mornings, but anything in the afternoon was gone because I had to work. And working weekends just took a toll. And, I presented some solutions so our team didn't all have to be there the entire time. And that didn't go very well. So then I read this book, Primal Leadership, and it just crushed me because I saw for the first time, you don't have to lead out of fear. You don't have to lead out of control. You don't have to lead at people. Actually, Daniel's research shows that when you tap into people's positive emotions, your team's more productive. People love their jobs more. And so I tried to have conversations. I tried to figure out how to change the culture I was in, but I had a very micromanaging, controlling supervisor. God bless them. They were the one put in that role. So, they could do what they want. They'd been there. They had, tenure, and a lot of people on their team had just been recycled, gone. And at that point in my life, I was way too afraid to confront them fully. I tried to at different things. I tried to approach them on different things. And I was always shot down, always, I'll say it. I was bullied and it was difficult. And so I finally, the last straw, I'm sitting in a team meeting and two of my children have at the time, two of my children have a rare genetic disease called PKU, phenylketonuria, 17,000 people in the US. We have 3 because we ended up adopting our 5th, and he has it as well. And at the time, we were scared about it. We didn't know much about it. Our life was weighing food and measuring and blood tests and doctor's visits. And I was always fighting to try to get off, the morning so I could go to, one of the genetic doctor clinic visits in the city. And it was just it was difficult. It was difficult. And I loved my supervisor. I tried to do everything I could to uh, work extremely hard, but it just took a toll. And finally, in that team meeting we're in, there's about 12, 15 of us. I started to become the butt of jokes, and I started to be called out in front of other people, thrown underneath the bus. Staff members would regularly apologize to me, check in to see how I was. And then in that team meeting, they made fun of my, the fact that a couple of my kids had this disease, and they made fun of the fact that I'm so overwhelmed by it. And it was a very difficult moment for me. It was a very difficult moment. I'm a fighter. I'm competitive, and you can make fun of me all day long. You can say whatever you want about me all day long. But when you say something about my family or my wife, it took everything in me to control myself, to keep my mouth shut, from not walking out, honestly, from not punching him. But the whole room went silent. Everyone just sort of looked around. They tried to, break the ice. It was a miserable moment. From that moment on, I started to eye my exit. I thought I had a job. I thought I had one lined up, put in, time to, okay, I'm quitting, I'm leaving. And then now that supervisor graciously extended it because that job fell through. But I just had to get out of there. And I was stepping out into the unknown. And it was so difficult. It was so difficult. At that moment, because I had read Primal Leadership, because I had talked to leaders on the other side who were leading with people, I realized that I did not want to be in the leading at people camp any longer. And I decided to change. And I've not been a perfect leader. You can ask my last teams that made giant mistakes, but I will never again lead at people and force them to go along with what I'm going with. And so in the course of this series, we're going to unpack what it means to lead with or lead at. And today I'm going to go through some warning signs that could, warning Will Robinson. I just really aged myself there. Those of you who remember the great TV show with Will Robinson. But I want to give you some warning signs, because if you're exhibiting these, especially if you lead a team, if you've been put over a project and you get to lead staff members that way, if you're in the C-suite and you've got there because you've led this way, if you're eyeing a different leadership role and you think you have to be more combative, more, forcefully aggressive, manipulative, do whatever it takes to get ahead, I hope that you put the tracks on it. I do hope that you'll go to speakofpeople.com/lead and download that free checklist, because I know that even going through that checklist will help you level up your leadership. But here we go. Warning sign number 1, you hoard information. You hoard information. Information is power. Information is knowledge. Information is trust. When you communicate to your team, you build trust with them. And when you communicate regularly, and when you start to withhold certain pieces of information from certain team members, that trust just gets broken. And it's a power move to be able to do that. It's a power move. Now, yes, there might be some top secret thing that the leadership team has been planning and you're not quite ready to unroll it. I get that. But when there are common everyday things that people low on the org chart or even high on the org chart can't get access to, this is a warning sign. So when you only share key details with select people, you leave other people in the dark. It's harmful because it breeds distrust. It undermines team cohesion, for Pete's sakes. I've been there. I've done that. And then the last team I was on, this was a common warning sign. Like, okay, I'll roll this out to the team. No, don't tell them, only tell them. Oh my goodness. So if this is what you do, you hoard information. I would recommend a few things. One, see, I know many of you who are working in the office who use Microsoft Teams. I'm sorry. I know some of you love it. I was just in Bellevue where Microsoft is and everybody uses Teams. And I'm like, yeah, but why can't they get the sharing feature to be as good as Google? And if I could, I'd move away from Google. There's some shady things about Google that I don't like. But with Google, you can at least share all the documents. And so with my teams, I always shared everything. So you have access to everything that I'm working on, thinking about, seeing. Is that true with your teams? Do they have access to see the updates? Do they have access to see what's coming up? And so if you want to change this, if you want to stop hoarding the information, be more open, be more transparent whenever possible. Now you don't have to share every detail all the time, but look for ways to keep the team in the know. Look for ways to so warning sign number 1, you hoard information. Okay, we talked about how to correct that. Warning sign number 2, you ignore the chain of command. Listen, there's a reason why the chain of command works so well. The military does this. If you make it into Major League Baseball, you start in the minor leagues, you start at single A, and then you go to double A, and then you're at triple A. There's a reason why there's this healthy chain of command. And when you skip people and go directly share them, like for instance, I was on a team where I oversaw a good amount of people, and for whatever reason, the trust started to disintegrate between me and my supervisor, and they would begin to communicate with the people below me. And I was finding out things from them. So I would go back and say, "Hey, I didn't realize you made that decision." Yep. I just, told people. Whew, that's harmful because it erodes trust and it creates confusion within the leadership structure. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there right now. If you're the leader and you're doing that, I hope that you'll stop right now. Follow the proper communication channels. Like if you don't trust the people that work for you, that's one thing. You probably need to be talking about moving people on and all that kind of stuff. But stop undermining them. So follow the proper channels. Roll out the communication in a healthy way. Warning sign number 3, public humiliation. Public humiliation. When you call someone out and you embarrass them in front of the team. Now, there's a difference between fun kind of making fun of and laughter. There's a difference between, hey, we're laughing at somebody's, okay, that's different. But when you start to call them out, you throw them underneath a bus. I know, yeah, I've talked about the Office TV show many times on this podcast. I know not everybody watched The Office. I know some people don't like it. Okay, but I loved it. There's a season towards the end where Andy Bernard comes into play and he tries to undermine Dwight Schrute. And he keeps throwing Dwight under the bus to his boss, Michael Scott, all the time. And maybe there's somebody in your workplace who does that with you. They constantly throw you under the bus. They ask you for something and then they turn it in instead of you. This is harmful because, again, it destroys the confidence and it destroys the trust and it leads to disengagement. If you want employees who will be disengaged, if you want a team that will be disengaged, humiliate them publicly, throw them underneath the bus. Now, sometimes we have to be called out. I get it. You're in a Zoom meeting and you fall asleep. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making fun of someone's children because they have a rare disease or making fun of you because you're worried about it all the time. Now, here's how you improve this. Always offer constructive criticism in private. Andy Stanley, a great communicator, he always talks about raving fans publicly, honest critics privately. Raving fans publicly, honest critics privately. Do that. Okay, warning sign number 4. You plop and drop communication. You plop and drop. You plop and drop. What in the heck does that mean? I wrote a blog post not too long ago on the Speak with People blog about plopping information or planning information. Some of us, I don't remember what movie it was, but they had to like fly animals, they had to pick them up from an helicopter and, fly them and then plop them down. Some of us, we just plop and drop information all the time. And we don't do the necessary follow-up. We decide something and then we just plop it on the team. And listen, you're the boss. You can do that. But if you plan and bring people into the communication decisions, you will get so much further faster because they'll want to go with you. So when you just continually plop and drop and shock people with the information, it creates confusion, it creates stress, creates missed opportunities for collaboration. So don't do that. So to prove, look in the show notes and get that blog post, read it, but plan and share important communications strategically. That's why I always share all my strategic documents. Everybody always had the master calendar. Everybody always had all of those different kind of things. So Share those important communications strategically. Warning sign number 5, you cut people off. You interrupt them. You shut them down, especially when they start asking too many questions. Ooh. You know that you are in an unhealthy, toxic environment where you can't ask questions. Uh, there should be no question. That should be off the table, especially in a team. People should be able to ask those questions, especially in a healthy team. And when you shut them down for asking too many questions, you discourage curiosity. Curiosity. I don't know why I can't pronounce that. And you discourage problem solving. Like, people should be able to ask questions. Questions draw the genius out of people. Questions draw the genius out of the situation. Questions are a gateway to finding a solution. That's what you got to be able to do. And so the way to improve that, you got to always encourage open dialogue and feedback. If you don't regularly do a right, wrong, missing, confusing, or a start, stop, improve type of strategic planning, you need to add that to your team meetings right away. People need to be able to speak up. We need to be able to say, hey, that didn't go the way we thought it would. That could be improved. And so if you cut people off, you don't allow them to share. Warning sign number 5. Warning sign number 6, people are afraid of you. Ooh, dun, dun, dun. Do you really know if people are afraid of you? I mean, I want to say that most leaders do, but I think there's some leadership personality types that are just kind of obnoxious and they just ignore that. Team members are visibly nervous around you. They avoid interactions. I hurt one of my supervisors once because they asked me to do something with them, and I said no. I just can't. For me, I had to set up a boundary line because being alone with them, it was just too much. So I tried to make sure I was not. And so if you are visibly nervous around your supervisor, you avoid interactions, you're hesitant to take on new initiatives, or again, go back to the beginning of this podcast, start looking for a new job. Find a healthy place. Unless you know the magic bullet to change the culture, but it's harmful because this type of leadership creates a toxic culture. Fear stifles innovation. Fear stifles trust. And so if you want to prove this, you want to build trust, be approachable, be empathetic, be real as a leader, be willing to open up. This is huge. And then warning sign number 7, you're the center of attention. Dun, dun, dun. You're the center of attention. Years past, I planted a church and I had a history in church leadership, and I planted a church. And recently I was in a Facebook group for church communicators, and they asked, hey, if you were planting a church again, how would you market it to the community? And number 1, I would not put my face on anything. I have my own personal, I just don't think pastors and their wives should be plastered on all of the church communication because it makes it about them. The church is not about them. It's about people's relationship with Jesus. And so if you're the center of attention all the time, you dominate the conversations. You're always the one who has the final say. You're always the one who has to be out front. You always take credit for everything. You never give your team members credit. This is a warning sign. It's harmful because it disempowers people. It prevents team growth. You will never get ahead because everything is all about you. So create space for others to lead and contribute. Look for ways to lead with people. Wow. Okay. So we just went through 7 warning signs. 7 warning signs if you lead at people. And we gave you some strategies to improve them on the back end. Here's the reality at the end of the day. When you lead people, you're choosing to be a healthy leader. So you care for your inner world, which means physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, relationally. You're taking steps every single day to be healthy. You're taking care of yourself. It means that you are choosing authenticity. You're going down the path to be you. You're empathetic. You don't just feel sorry for people, but you put yourself in their place so you can feel the weight of what they're going through. You're present with people. You're not distracted by technology and a million other things. You're inquisitive, so you ask great questions. You allow questions to be asked of you. You've become the Yoda of listening. You are listening. You are active listening. You are adaptive listening. You're collecting people's stories. You're learning everything you can about their stories. You're laughing with them. You have joy. You're using words that help but not harm. And you strive after clarity. You strive after clarity. And so when you're walking down that path and you're choosing to stay on this path with those 10 healthy leadership behaviors, you're going to lead with people. You're going to put them above yourself. You're going to be a servant leader. You're going to make sure the team wins more than you win, and powerful things will happen in your leadership. So I want to challenge you. Reflect on those 7. Reflect on those 7. And if there are any of those that right now you're exhibiting in your leadership, work to improve them. You may want to ask somebody, what's it like on the other side of me? What's it like on the other side of me? Am I difficult to work with? Am I controlling? Do people fear me? Do they not want to be around me? Are they cold? Do everything you possibly can to do that. And now, make sure you head to speakwithpeople.com/lead. Get that checklist so you can level up your leadership. And especially if you lead a team, use those exercises in your next huddles or your team meetings. And get ready for a freaking amazing series. I mean, we have so many amazing guests that are going to blow your mind. Like, I can't even begin to tell you. You know what? I'm going to tell you. Let me tell you about a couple of these. Dennis Neal is in our next episode. Dennis is my business partner. He helped co-found Speak with People. We have Dr. Julian Muravel, who wrote an incredible book about positive communication. Ariel Moody, who is a CEO of Talkadoc. I mean, just amazing. Brittany Hodak, who is a 5-figure public speaker, wrote an incredible book on customer service. Dr. JJ Peterson. I mean, come on. I mean, if you don't know Dr. JJ and StoryBrand and Marketing Made Simple podcast, Todd Bolsinger, who is a leadership expert, Paul Newberger, who is the founder of C-Suite for Christ, who has written a ton of books on cold calls, Dr. Jennifer Knowles, Damon Lemby, Bob King. I mean, I'm telling you, the lineup of this series is just going to rock your world, rock your leadership. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Okay, your next steps, your checklist. Make sure you're in the Speak with People Facebook community group, because very soon there'll be a next level to that. And I can't wait to announce that, tell you more about that, but I can't wait. Make sure you download the leadership checklist, lead with checklist, speakwithpeople.com/lead. And make sure you're doing some honest evaluation. If there's any of these that you need to improve, work on it today. Start working on it. Put together an improvement plan. All right, join us for the entire rest of the series. Cannot wait to see you in the next episode. Email me, jason@speakwithpeople.com, and let's talk about your leadership.
Thank you for listening to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. Thank you for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And thank you for every like and every comment. Every single time you cut and copy a link and send it to a coworker or a friend, it absolutely means the world, and it helps each other transform our communication skills. Lastly, don't forget about a great resource that's available to you: our communication skills library. At the end of every episode, we ask each guest their favorite speaker, their favorite podcast, their favorite book, and we've compiled all of those resources together to give you an amazing library to continue your growth and development. Thank you again for being a listener and for being a part of the Speak with People community.